Marketing for Business podcast is about giving people insights into the world of business and interviewing successful business people and hearing their stories and sharing them with other business owners. We've actually got some people that in the room that have been on the podcast, and so we've got some people that'll be on the podcast too. So appreciate you coming along today. So lucky enough to over the years build relationships with the gentleman here. Straight on my right here, Mr. Kevin Eder owns Trade Staff, a really good New Zealand business. If you haven't listened to his podcast, it's one of the first that we did. Appreciate Kevin coming along. Fascinating businessman, and you'll get some really good gems from Kevin, so make sure you take notes. And obviously introduced Tony before, our co-sponsor for tonight. So he will have some gems from you. Yeah, he's from the deep south of Invercargill, so if we need a translator, we'll be okay. And then I thought I'd better bring my landlord along. No, to be fair, I've known Sean now for probably 5 years, and really admire what he's done for Christchurch as a city. One of the first buildings or developers to get a building back in the CBD, and he's really his class act when it comes to developing and reworking the CBD of Christchurch. So we're privileged to have the three gentlemen here, and I think Sean by a long way wins the shoe, followed closely by Kevin and Tony a long way behind. Even though he's just come back from Hawaii. I thought you might have stashed out. All right, let's get started. Today's theme's about success leaves clues. I'm a massive believer in it. Success does leave clues. I've seen it over my lifetime. I've seen, learning from other people. So the first question I wanted to go to is I'd love an example from you guys that you have learned about success from another successful person. And if you can, I'd love to share you guys to share a story. So, Sean, we're going to start with you. Do you need the mic?
So it's 1997, and I'd sold cars for about 20 years. I've been a car dealer, and I started in real estate and do a real estate course and go to the first conference, and we come across a guy called Bob Wolf, who was where I pinched the saying, success leaves clues, although other people have said it. So he used to have a saying, if they're successful and they walk like a duck, walk like a duck. All that type of stuff. And he used to talk about, don't worry about interest rates. It's like the rain, you can't change them, so don't try to change it. And he'd talk about, be prescriptive about what you want in life and what you want to achieve. So if you want 52 ties, put it in your diary, you want 52 ties. If you want a new car and the market's bad, go to the dealership after hours, look at the car, work out what you want, and focus yourself on it. If you focus on it, you'll draw yourself to it. So, I followed him for years, and when I was in real estate, followed him for a long, long time, what he'd done, how he operated. He was the top agent in the US for years and made a fortune.
So what would he be saying about interest rates now then?
I'm not sure what they are in the States. He's probably more concerned about the government there at the moment. But yeah, you can't change interest rates. You can't change the weather.
And that was his philosophy around it? You can't change them, can't change the weather, so don't focus on it?
Get on with it. Yep, focus on what you want, what you want to do, what you want to become, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, diary your holidays, all that type of stuff, which, being in my car dealer lane for 20 years, I hadn't really experienced it.
And what impact did that have? Did you start doing that?
Yes, I did, Yep, so I ran a not like a day diary, I ran a separate, like a journal, and I had in it what I wanted. So I wanted this, I wanted that, all that type of thing. And you found that sometimes you would look at it for a while, then you'd go back to it and you'd actually see, well, actually, I've done that, and I've done that, and I've done that.
Anyone else in the room do that? Nice. Some successful people in the room. Yes, Ashley, exactly. That's awesome. Tony.
Thank you. Well, back to real estate. So I was selling in Invercargill back in the old days, and obviously become part of Harcourts back a long, long time ago, 91. So, and it was back to Hawaii. So there was a conference there. Steve Collins said, "Come on, Tony, you should be there." And I was doing quite well in real estate, but went over there and heard these American speakers, and you need to get a PA. And I thought, oh, this is going to be quite interesting. I mean, I like to do it all myself. But I realised very quickly in business that you can't do it all yourself. Whether you're selling, you're running a business. So I've got 3 words I use every day: delegate, delegate, delegate. So in the end, I had a PA, full-time PA, and the guys in the office used to laugh at me because she would do I was single at the time, she would do my groceries, the car was groomed, all my stuff was done, like I was just focusing on listing and selling real estate. So I wrote a few notes here, but I'm not going to refer to them, but I suppose in business, you've got to be dollar productive. Be good at what you do, you don't want to be good at everything, because I think we all have our strengths and weaknesses. So technology is not my strength. The guys in the office, there's a couple here tonight, know that. So, and that's why I get good people around you to do the things. So that PA absolutely changed my business. And one other thing that I think that helped me in business in the old days was I obviously run the business with a partner. I was a selling partner, so my partner came up to Christchurch actually back in about 6 years after we started the business, and I thought, gosh, what am I going to do? I'm selling real estate, now I'm running this office with 20 odd people. Surely they're going to do everything I used to do. Well, that doesn't quite happen that way. But I had a mentor here in Christchurch, a guy financially who used to do a lot of work for Harcourts, and he said to me, TJ, you need to get an in-house accountant. So once I took that step forward, I got good financial records given to me on a monthly basis, and from that day on, I've kept, the business I'm running, doesn't matter what I'm running, good records can keep you ahead of what's going on. Good P&Ls.
Yeah, nice. And when you say delegate, oh, now we've got some sound. Was that an expensive cost for your time?
Well, it was. I mean, you're sort of there. A PA, I suppose, in those days was probably not a lot of money now, but 25, 30 grand was a decent sized chunk of money. Yeah. This is back 100 years ago, 30 years ago. But look, over those next few years, I went to number 2 in Harcourts in New Zealand, and from Invercargill, so I could list 20 houses a month back in the day, and I couldn't have done it without the support. Yeah. And another guy ended up getting a buyer's agent, first probably to have a PA, probably one of the first in New Zealand really in those days.
Awesome, thank you. Kevin?
Well, my story is probably a little bit different, I guess. I started trade staff when I was 29 or so, and after 2 or 3 years, I realised that I was actually quite good at it. Yep. And the industry was just something that suited me. But I looked around and I could see these people, and they were ancient, I suppose, but they were in their 50s, and I'm 56 now. They were in their 50s, and I thought they were pretty useless, to be honest, but they had the big flash car and they had the big boat, and they were always on overseas holidays and doing all of that stuff. And so I became incredibly frustrated, and I talked to an older fella that I knew and sort of said, look, I'm just so incredibly frustrated that I literally have no money. My business is growing massively. It's doubling in size every 8 months. The P&Ls look good. I've got no cash. I might go broke any moment. And it's just so frustrating when I realise I'm good at this, but I don't see the success. And he just laughed at me and said, you're 32 years old. You're too young to have success. Just keep doing what you're doing. Hang in there. Get better every day. And when you're in your 50s, you'll have the big flash car. I don't. Boat. I don't. But overseas holidays, I'm a world champion at that. And so, for me, it was actually one of patience and not getting ahead of myself and just remembering to just keep doing the right thing and to be bold and to understand that success would come. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah. What does being bold mean to you, though? What was that mindset?
Well, we started in Christchurch here, and for the first 14 months it was just me. I employed Lady Janice, who turned out very quickly to be good at the business. She's still with us today.
So the story behind that, though, you ran an ad for how long?
I ran an ad in the newspaper. Unemployment was 9.5%. I ran an ad in the Christchurch Press saying I was looking for a needle in a haystack, and I got about 1,000 replies. And so about a month later, it was crazy, but about a month later, I put another ad in the paper saying, hey, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm ironically just too busy to interview anyone in a recruitment organisation, right? And so Janice faxed me, of all things, and said, I'm glad to hear you haven't forgotten about me, because I haven't forgotten about you either. When's my interview? So that's being bold, I guess, because I employed her that afternoon. But what I was going to say is we started in Christchurch. Janice became obviously quite good at it. And after a while, we were tripping over each other. So I wanted to open a branch somewhere else, but if it didn't work out, I was conscious of the fact that maybe because I'd been in Christchurch for a few years, that was the reason I was doing okay. So we opened a branch in Hamilton, which was far enough away, but I felt similar to Christchurch with the rural connection. And I lived basically in Hamilton for 4 days a week for a year, and we grew that business into bigger than Christchurch. And one of the recurring themes that came is I'd go to clients and they would always say, oh, you know, we've got a branch in Tauranga. If you're in Tauranga, you know, we would do business with you. So I got sick of hearing that, so I organised a lunch with 5 or 6 of these gentlemen and said to them, okay, look, you've said this. If I open a branch in Tauranga, will you do business with me? They said yes, and so 6 weeks later we opened a branch there. And then we just went a bit crazy, to be honest, and opened another 5 in the next 2 years, which is why I had no money, I suppose. But we were just bold in the fact that we worked out, amazingly enough, that it was an established industry here in Christchurch, but not in the North Island. I think most people in the Waikato actually think that I invented temping, that I invented recruitment, which we traded on quite a bit. So, you know, we realised that there was an opportunity, that there wasn't a lot in the market. Today it's very, very different. We've got 23 direct competitors in Christchurch alone. So, you know, we were sort of first to market.
That's awesome, right? What a great story. And facts even. How good. Hey, Sean, I'm going to ask you this question because, you know, look, after the earthquakes, you know, if we're all, you know, people here from Christchurch will know this and experience that there was a lot of uncertainty. Government had promised a lot of stuff, but I want to know, you know, how do you approach risk taking and decision making from a business point of view? Because I think the landscape that maybe we're moving into, not say we're going to go into recession, but you know, it's difficult out there for people, right? Interest rates are high, you know, inflation's high, prices are biting. How do you approach, you know, making decisions and risk taking in those environments?
My risk appetite these days is a lot lower than what it was back then. But after the quakes, we had we lost 14 CBD buildings, and everything. We had 2 left, and everything we had was damaged. All the suburban stuff was damaged. Everything was damaged, and we'd done a deal with the insurer 8 months out from the quakes and got our cheque, loss of rents and a trust account. So we were sort of done, and we looked at rebuying in Auckland, and I just couldn't do it. We went up there and looked at some property. They all stacked up. This is all good. Looked at an apartment, and we just couldn't get it over the line. So we made the call to rebuild here, and the first building we rebuilt was the Jewellers on the corner of Mexican restaurant Jewellers on the corner of Manchester and Worcester. So we rebuilt it. Boom, she's built. Tenants moved in July 2012. On the 12th, and on the 26th, they announced the frame, which. The blueprint, which the building was going.
So you built the building and then they canned it?
Yep. It was fully tenanted, all set to go. Had a government tenant in it too. And so then we started to rebuild Strangers building, which has got Strangers Lane and everything in it. So we get foundations down, and they take us at the Atakaro, which was Sarah then, give us a call up. Said, I want to take you out for dinner, have a chat. So Dean and I go out for dinner and sit with them, and he says, oh, look, we've got this. Don't like to tell you this, but we've just developed this scheme where you've got to have 7,500 metres of land to develop. Remember that silly rule they had? And we had like 700 metres. I could have punched the guy, you know, and we said we can't do it. So we got dispensation to keep going, and we built that one. We restored the one next door, which was the Bollington House, and then we just kept building, just kept going. But we're at a stage now in life where, you know, 60 plus, you fall over the handlebars, you don't get up again easily.
But if you look back, like, you know, if you're in your 30s, what would be advice to some of the people that are in the room that are in their 30s going, hey, you know, I like this property gig, You know, and especially the commercial side.
Yeah. When I was in my 30s, I used to buy everything I could buy. The debt level didn't worry me. The LVRs didn't worry me. As long as I could service them and buy the property, I just kept buying. You know, if you found you know, some old guy retiring as a landlord had a block of flats or something, you'd leave most of the money in, bang, I'd be straight on it. Nice. And you'd get it banked, and then 5 years later the market's, you know, risen, the rents have risen, you've improved the property, a bank will take it out and you've just picked up that equity in it.
Yeah. I remember you saying on the podcast you always tried to buy 2 or 3 of them at the time.
Yes, yes.
Tony, I'm going to ask you the same question. You had an interesting scenario because you came to Christchurch 12 months before the earthquakes, invested in a business, and you got a phone call after the earthquakes from your Invercargill lawyer. What did he say to you?
He said to me, Tony, pack up and come home, because my old business partner went to Christchurch and took his own life probably about 15 years earlier. So he was a bit worried that I was going to be... So you know, I'll just roll the story back a wee bit. So 2009, I get a call from the girls that own this business. I'm happily in Invercargill running a business down there. They said, Tony, we did tell you we'd give you an opportunity. We're going to give you 10 days. You need to fly up this week, talk to us. If you want to buy it, you need to be on the case. So I flew to Christchurch, running a successful business down south. I had a Harcourt's franchise in Invercargill, Gore and Wanaka. So I was giving up quite a bit to come up. So anyway, I made a decision within a few days. Yep, we're buying it. I was in Christchurch about 2 weeks later, running a whole new business that I didn't know the people. So it was a big call to come to a new area that you knew no one, apart from a few of the business owners that probably didn't like me coming up here. And I got the word that got back to me was, what's the Southern farmer in gumboots going to do in the middle of Fennelton? That was my motivation speech. So I quite enjoyed that.
And how did you relate to people? Like, what
my biggest one was just to connect with the people. So I had a lot of coffee in that first couple of weeks. I was coffeeing. Actually, one of the guys said to me, Tony, you've only been here 6 to 12 months. Brian Buckingham, who works in his office here, and he said, how do you know so many people? I said, when you go to Aikman's and number 4, 3-4 times a week, you meet a lot of people.
The life of a real estate agent.
So you asked another question. Sorry, I got sidetracked.
It was around, you know, your approach to risk-taking, decision-making.
Well, I mean, I suppose that was, you know,
especially even now.
I did back myself those days. I mean, hey, we run a reasonably good business down south. I thought, well, I like the idea of a challenge. Oh, you can't do it in Christchurch. You've done it in Invercargill. I thought, well, it's not much different. It's a people business we're in. If you're good to people, they'll be good to you. So my attitude was come up, create an environment that's successful, have a bit of fun, because I don't like doing anything now unless I'm having a lot of fun, create a bit of culture, and get on with it, you know.
Yeah. You're big on culture, right?
Huge on culture, yeah, I am.
Yeah. What's your favourite saying?
A bit of fizz in the Coke.
Bit of fizz in the Coke. So Tony runs sessions here on a Tuesday morning.
We've got a couple of agents here in the room, actually. I've had a couple of new agents start with us, and they think, what's Tony on in the mornings, you know? What sort of pills is he on?
You need it. Hey, Kevin, I'm going to cut to you now. I know you've got a good story about this, and if I have to prompt you, I will, but because I really enjoyed it when you told it. How do you balance, and Tony and Sean, you can think about this too, how do you balance cutting costs but the need to be continually investing in growth in difficult times in business? You know, like people right now might be thinking, geez, do I cut costs, but I still need to grow? How do you balance that right now in the market that we're in? And how did you balance it when we talked about you were in Italy and or Spain, and that's how you found out where the GFC was happening?
I can't wait to hear what I'm going to say here after you prompt me. I'll come back to that. We'll have a bit of a think. The risk thing, I think that one thing that does happen as you get older and as you've got more to lose, you do become a little bit more risk averse. So when I was younger, I was basically full of bullshit and jelly beans and would attack everything, very confident. Now I'm not so full of the jelly beans, but we look at it very differently now. If we're going to acquire a business or open a new business, firstly, it's got to be meaningful. Does it add to what we do? And then to look at it and say, if it completely goes sideways, will it hurt us that much? If it's going to hurt too much, I must admit, these days I'd rather not bother. I've got a bit lazy. Cutting costs, I don't really cut costs. I don't really believe in it. Because the thing about cutting costs is that something else gives. So if you're cutting costs massively, I mean, I drive a hard bargain, as you know, But if you're starting to go through things and chopping costs, then I would look at what you lose. Do you lose your service proposition, or do you affect the well-being of your staff, or what comes from that? So I personally tend to look at the other end of it. For me, my business is driven on our GP. I focus massively on our GP. I believe that revenue is basically for vanity. Profit is what buys my kids shoes. Nothing as fancy as those. And so I tend to focus more on the GP. And I think what you're alluding to is that, I was in Spain. I went to the Santander Bank in late 2007, and they'd closed all the ATMs, and you had to line up in a big long line, and the most you could draw out of a bank account was €100 at a time. So when I got back, I realised the world had changed. The GFC had arrived. So what I did was I looked at what business we were doing and realised that a lot of it wasn't particularly profitable. So when everyone else was discounting and chopping, I just put our prices up. I put them up right across the board. And basically, I figured that business would probably drop by about 10%. So I sort of put up our margins by 15%. And by the end of 2009, when all the international agencies had closed their offices and buggered off, we were more profitable than what we had been in 2007.
No, good. Who's going to raise their price coming tomorrow? Put up your hand.
We've actually done it over the last couple of years as well. We do actually openly tell our clients that we are the most expensive recruitment agency in New Zealand. And if you're going to say that, you have to be able to say why, and that is basically because, in the last couple of years, we all know about skill shortages, and people say to me, "Oh, you must be the busiest guy in Christchurch because everyone wants staff." And my response is, I don't have any. We've been a pub with no beer for the last 2 years. So if we're going to do less business, we need to make more from it. The great benefit of that is that now things are picking up for us. We're still 25% down on what we were pre-COVID, but we'll make more money this year than we did pre-COVID.
That's awesome. Tony?
In terms of cutting costs, obviously after the earthquake, we did react pretty quickly. So I think we got a call from our Harcourt's franchise manager in Auckland, Joe Clifford. He said, "Tony, do you know this is going to be a real tough time for you guys? We're predicting you're going to do about 25% of your business you did last year." So we're all sort of sweating a bit. So I went out and I talked to Mike Mullins was their CFO there, and I said, "TJ, you're not going to get any money off the guy that owns this building here was a Korean guy, and he won't do anything with the rent." So I said, no, we're going to have a talk to him. So I asked him for 3 months discount. Sure enough, we asked. If you don't ask, you don't get. He gave us a 3-month discount on the rent. We went to our photocopy suppliers. We got every single person that dealt with us, we got a discount. So you can get it. And my old saying is, sometimes you've got to eat the frog and do the things that you may not want to do. So if you're running a successful business, sometimes you've got to do things. And one of the other things too is we had an office in St Albans. In fact, that's where our office is now. At that stage, we were paying huge rent. The guy that I bought the business off had developed the building, Mr Ken Sharpland. So he'd hydraulic the rent up. So we took it as an opportunity to get out of that lease. And at the time, we got 100,000 key money at the time, which was pretty good money. And we all relocated here to Wylam too. So from that day on, I think you can actually just control your costs. But also, my philosophy is, if you want to run a good business, you should be actually owning the property that you're running from. So my sort of story is that, we like to own our buildings. So, so obviously, if you're running a business, you've got to pay rent somewhere. Sean, you might not want to hear that, but obviously, there's a lot in owning your own buildings. So I own a lot of our Homewood buildings that we own, and we've got pretty good. This one here's, and geared back to this Korean guy that owned it. Mike said to me, "Oh, he won't sell it, Tony." So in 2013, we approached him. "Oh, no, not for sale, but everything's for sale at the right price, isn't it?" So we went to a price that we went to, and we probably paid a lot more than we should have, but guess we owned the building. So, yeah.
You do something quite unique as well, though. Like, you probably, from a marketing perspective, you run your own marketing team. You have your own printer. You've got an amazing setup back there.
I think one of the things, the guys that are in here, they know how that works, but one of the things with Homewood, they've always had great training and great marketing, and I wanted to make sure we carried that on. So I think, Janelle, are you here still? Yep. Janelle runs our marketing department. It's pretty special what we provide here, isn't it, in terms of marketing? And I know there's other companies in town that do their own stuff too, but I think our stuff, guys, you're here, you can tell me if I'm out of line here.
It's fantastic to get video content.
Yeah, video content, but also the material we produce in-house. It's pretty smart, isn't it? I think in business you've got to have a wee edge. Yeah. So when I say to people, if an agent's coming to see me, I say, look, what are you looking for? And they always say, I want good training, Tony, and good marketing and a great culture. I say, it's your lucky day, we can all do all three. So, but marketing and training is big for us.
Nice. Sean?
Any business has got both cost centres and profit centres, and you've got to look at both. And what we've done in the last 12 months is looked at our cost centres, our profit centres, and then because we have such a wide, diverse portfolio, we've looked right across the portfolio and we worked out where the synergies and the scalability. And we've had, in the last 12 months, anyone that's put their prices up more than we think is reasonable, we've actually gone back to them and said, look, do you want to revise those or not? Because we're going to put them out to tender. And we've put some of them back out to tender and got a better result. And it all works. You have to think of all those synergies and all those that are in your business already, where you already got stuff that's operating and is happening, and can it all fall in sync and can you save money? And the other thing I do is, I have done for years, is they're not checks these days, but they're on a big list of things, but I check every single one that goes out, just so you know what's going out. Yep. We had someone the other day bill us $1,200 for a door handle, and they'd made...
And it wasn't right.
It should have been $280.
Oh.
But it's easy when you're busy just to look over that stuff.
Yeah, especially if you're looking at big numbers, right? You're constantly...
And it's all money down the drain.
Yeah.
Was that a mistake?
It was a mistake. Yeah. Could have been a nasty one, but it was a mistake. Yeah. So cost centres, profit centres, and then if you can get that stuff in line, just fall into synergies and you get scalability, then you can really save some money.
Yeah, nice. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone got something burning they'd like to ask?
When we comment?
This is not a Harcourt's advertising.
No. I realise that. No. I just want to say about, I came up with an idea about 2 years ago to run what we call a super start for our team. So in other words, have some high quality speakers. And I thought, well, this is going to cost quite a bit of money. So why don't we go to our suppliers and see if we can get a bit of sponsorship? So we've gone to the press and, realestate.co and trade meetings and so forth. And we had John Kerwin last year. We had some pretty good speakers this year, didn't we, guys? But a lot of it was, Josh Coman, fantastic speaker. A lot of this is inspiring our team, but a lot of the, obviously to run that event costs a lot of money, so we've got a lot of sponsorship in for that.
Yeah, and I guess that's about being resourceful, right?
It is.
And
it's interesting, every franchise, well, 2 of them in town have copied us, and then I got a ring from Auckland franchisee saying, how much did you get out of realestate.co? We've never got any money out of them at all for anything. So they were ringing me to see what sort of money we got out of them. So if you don't ask, you don't get, is my old saying.
Yeah, nice. Anyone from the floor got a question? I'll keep, one more. Yep.
Trade stuff.
Yeah, mate.
Out of all your buildings that you have around Christchurch, do you own them or do you rent them? Sorry, around New Zealand.
We own a portion of them. We don't own the one here. I probably will. We're in negotiation every year.
Every year.
But we do own some, and we're just looking at a new opening that'll probably open next month, and we've got two opportunities, either the lease or buy, and I'm trying to buy. Because for all of the reasons that were talked about before, I was pretty dumb and leased buildings for 20 odd years without it really understanding commercial real estate.
What's your biggest regret in business?
No, I don't have any really. I can't think of. I often say that it doesn't matter how smart you are; it's ultimately wisdom that sees you through. And I've made some monumental mistakes in my time, but I am just smart enough not to make them twice normally.
Tony, any thoughts on that one?
In terms of, probably like to be in Christchurch a bit earlier. I love it here. and it's a great city to live in, and the business is great. You know, I've enjoyed it really immensely. So, hey, I loved Invercargill, don't get me wrong, it's put me on the map, but I've certainly enjoyed it up here, you know.
I really haven't got any regrets. You look back in time with property and you think, well, I should have bought more or done more or whatever, but you pretty much do what you can do, really. You know, there's only so much you can do.
Brendan, can I reframe that question and ask what your biggest lesson is in business?
Nice.
That's a good one. Biggest lesson. Biggest lesson. Probably when you're talking to banks, who's had a bit of trouble with banks lately? They don't like businesses, do they? So if you run a business, you go and borrow some money, they don't want to know you. So I found out very quickly that you need to own the buildings, because if you want to borrow some money, you need a building to secure the finance against, or housing, or whatever it might be. So the more property you own, I think Sean will agree to this, the far better, isn't it?
Yep.
And I mean, that's what I've done with most of my, obviously the money I make out of business goes back into owning the building or whatever, the property.
I've had time to think about that. I actually think it's you know, having the realisation that you don't know everything, and the fact that, you know, you guys are here because you want to learn about marketing or dealing with Scott or whatever. I think we just ran out on it. For me, it was a lesson just in the last wee while, actually, in the last couple of years. We were advertising for consultants, salespeople to come and work for us. We've got 80 odd around the country, and I was really disappointed in the standard of the people that were applying to work for us, and I couldn't work it out. I've always, I really like employing people young. People bag young people today. I love them. Seems to be 22, 23, 24. That's where all our superstars come. And they just weren't applying for any of the jobs we're advertising. So I got together 3 people from around the country, 23-year-olds, and I said to them, you know, why do you work for us? Why do you know, you love working here. What is it that ticks your boxes? Because, you know, we're not getting any more people like you. And what we drilled down to was basically our recruitment ads. We were selling trade stuff as a company and as a career opportunity. And so I would say, the 3 of them were sitting there, and I said, okay, cool, look, New Zealand owned and operated. And they're like, yeah, sounds limiting. Okay. But been in business for 27 years, yeah, you all sound old and fuddy-duddy, right? So all of the things that we were trading on, they found irrelevant. And so I'm like, all right, cool. Tell me what it is that you want in the workplace. You're young, you know, what do you want? And the first thing they all said was that they wanted to know that they were being listened to, that their opinion mattered. They wanted to be respected, they wanted to feel safe, and they wanted to learn, all right? And we weren't using any of those phrases whatsoever in our internal advertising to work internally for us. So we drafted together an ad with them sitting around the table, whacked it up on the internet and all that, and yeah, the quality and the quantity of the candidates that are coming to us is like tripled. So, you know, if I want to employ 23-year-olds, I'm maybe not the best person to talk to them.
What a great example of like talking to your people, right? And success leaves clues inside that, right? You got your best people around and sat them down and asked them, hey, what do they want? And look, I think that's a credit to, you know, just listening and caring. And I think that's a big part of it, right?
It's fair to say when they first started saying that they wanted to be listened to and have their opinions respected, that I was, yeah, I came to it eventually.
And to be fair, you have some superstars there, you know, the likes of Emma and Kim and those girls. They are superstars at what they do, and they're young age running a pretty successful side of your business.
Yeah, it turned out that we've got 4 or 5 people in the company that we celebrate success. We have what we call the Trade Staff Living Legends. There's now 9 of them. Basically, that's throughout the country. They are basically without question those people. We have annual awards, which everyone makes a big fuss about. But I realised that a whole bunch of our stars we got when they were 23, and so I started looking at that, or Michael Jordan thing, I suppose, I don't know, but you know, 23 seemed to be the number, and so you know, the focus then was to, right, how do we get more of those? Yeah, and you know, and we worked really hard at that. So we've got one guy, his name's Tom Hill. We employed him when he was 23 up in Hamilton. Today, his business unit, he has 8 full-time directs, running about 280, 300 temporary staff a day, with a business that turns over $16 or $17 million. He's only just 27 now.
Perfect. How good. Nice. Hey, any other from the floor? I've got time for one more. Dennis.
So where does wisdom come into it with a 23-year-old?
Dangerous ground.
That's me as a mentor, a lot of it. Allowing to make small mistakes, but not big ones. And we do that with all of our young people. So when they start with us, they go through a bit of a period. Everyone that starts with us goes through a bit of a period, and we give them, the basic training and all that. And then after about 6 weeks or so, we have what we call the masterclass, and they spend that day with me. And that basically, as a group, and basically we say to them, look, forget I own the company. I'm just the funny-looking old fella that's been around a while that knows a whole bunch of stuff around this industry. So there's a lot of war stories, showing them the why. I'm a big believer in not so much showing them the how, but the why. Why do we do it like this, and what difference does it make? And then checking on them. I talked with everyone that starts with us in the first 12 months. I talk to at least once a month, and that's in a, I won't tell your boss on your situation. And we very much have a no secrets policy. The only time I lose my rag these days at work is if I'm surprised by something. And so, we're going through our process at the moment of budgeting for the year, and that's done in consultation with Tom, for instance. And I'll throw out a number of what I want. He'll then give me all the reasons why he can't. We'll meet somewhere in the middle. And then I hold him to that on a monthly basis. So, like you were saying before about the numbers, I know every day, I know exactly how we're trading, where we're at, where we've got problems, where we're going well. And so the wisdom basically comes from getting to hang around with people that have got wisdom, I think.
Tony.
In terms of growing your business, though, I think that's what some of the comment there about growing a business in a tougher market. This is an opportunity to really grow your business. I've always believed that if you're not growing, you're going backwards. So, the old story, there's always opportunities in a market like this. Hey, when I come to Christchurch, my general manager of property management, she was running 100 properties, and she knew all the owners intimately. And I said, Caroline, do you want to grow this business? Because I'd gone through the same stages myself over the years, wanting to do it myself. So we're now running about 1,400 properties, and she has delegated that role out. And we're now one of the biggest in terms of PM. So, and we're always for sale. We're always buying rent rolls if they're available. So I think you've got to be always open to an opportunity, because in business there's always opportunities. And so keep close to your bank. Make sure you've got good P&Ls so that you can act quickly if you need to. So I'm a great one to knowing your KPIs in terms of your P&L. But obviously banks need to know that too, so that you can move quickly on an opportunity if one comes up.
What was the question, Scott?
Wisdom. But also, maybe let's just finish with your thoughts on what people need to do right now or focus on right now.
Well, firstly, wisdom. I think we all grow from lessons. So you have hard lessons, we grow, and we get older, we become wise because we've had life experiences. And Tony's right about opportunities in a hard market like we're in now, where banks aren't lending to most people. If you're in a position where you can buy something, there's really good opportunities there. And, tough markets don't last, but tough people do. So,
That's a good one too.
If you just focus, you'll get there. It's writing goals, it's doing stuff, and I want to go there, that's where we're going.
Perfect. Guys, that concludes this part of the evening, but really appreciate you coming along. We had 90-something odd people book, but you guys turned up, and I really, really appreciate that. Look, one of the things I really learned when the GFC hit and then the earthquakes is you really need to get around successful people if you want to grow your businesses and want to grow yourselves. So my advice right now is to meet the people in the room and exchange names, exchange phone numbers, and really work on your network around successful people, because there's a whole bunch of people that could be here that aren't. but you're here with a group of successful people. So take a pat on the back. And once again, I just want to say thank you to Tony and the team from Harcourt's Homewood. Really appreciate you taking a punt and helping me put this event on time. All right, enjoy the food.